Welcome everybody, my name is Michael and today we're discussing about John Mcafee. I was supposed to make a positive video about, but turns out it's negative. It's a little windy, so we're going to get inside. I wanted to report on his extradition to America from Spain, which wasn't the best of news, but it certainly was better than this. Rest in peace to John Mcafee. He is deceased at age 75 years old. Now, there is a conspiracy floating around because, well, the matter of his death is rather strange, and 11 months earlier, he stated that he's not going to pull an Epstein, and this is what happened. He kind of pulled an Epstein. So, yeah, we don't really know what's happened. It could make sense that, he was facing a lifetime behind bars for not paying his taxes, amongst other charges, and he was going to get extradited to the U.S. It was approved by Spain, and he didn't want to die in a U.S. jail. He was 75 years old at least, and he certainly led quite a fruitful life. So let's discuss about John Mcafee. I saw him at the crypto conference, and our team from Travel Block, we had a picture with him, and that's just pretty sad. We spoke with him. That's pretty sad that it went out this way. He was one of the most controversial, one of the most insane figures we have known in the cryptocurrency world. There's a meme, flee to Belize. Well, he fled out of Belize because of a scandal where one of his neighbors was killed, and then he was in prison, and he escaped prison. There's just a bunch of crazy stuff. And the last years of his life, really, he was living at large with cryptocurrency, and I guess tax evasion took him down. Was mainly admitting to tax evasion online. That's what took him down. Now, what's rather strange about this whole scenario is that John Mcafee, like I mentioned, wanted the world to know that he wouldn't die a la Epstein, and he actually got a tattoo schwacked. So if, just in case anything happened to him, he was posting on Twitter, that's where he had most of his influence. He led a fantastically crazy life. So he made his millions. He made a huge amount of money from selling a software, an antivirus. Everybody remembers Mcafee antivirus if you lived in, the early 2000s. Mcafee was found deceased this afternoon in his cell in Brians 2 prison in Barcelona. Officials stated that the early investigation points to a death by himself. It came just hours after a Spanish court approved Mcafee's extradition to the U.S., where he is wanted on tax-related criminal charges that carry a prison sentence of up to 30 years. John Mcafee's Instagram account posts a mysterious cue minutes after his jail death, which ended up stoking conspiracy theories that were sparked by his tweet months back that he would never ever take his own life, which is rather strange because the whole thing with Epstein is still unresolved, and it's resolved, but there's some sketchy circumstances surrounding it. His wife Janice Mcafee further fueled the conspiracy theories with a Father's Day post made just days before his death. In the post, Janice speculated that U.S. authorities are determined to have John die in prison. Mcafee had tweeted on October 15th, 2020, "I'm content in here. I have friends. The food is good. All is well. Know that if I hang myself a la Epstein, it will be by no fault of mine." And this was while he was already in a prison, and he was waiting for the process with extradition and how it would go. And yes, some would point that, if he's going back to the U.S. and certain prisons in Europe, it's obviously a little bit comfier, and he's going to face a lengthy prison sentence. But he's 75 years old. He's not got that much. He wouldn't have that much time left. Another tweet that he posted getting subtle messages from U.S. officials saying, in effect, "We're coming for you, Mcafee. We're going to make you deceased. I got a tattoo just today in case. If I, myself, I didn't. I was whacked. Check my right arm, and this is the tattoo." So if he was found, with the letter starting S, here's a money sign, whacked, schwacked. If he, the word, I can't really say it because we want to be kid-friendly, advertiser-friendly. Yeah, it's pretty sick tattoos. Earlier, in a post from November 2019, Mcafee suggested that if he was to, get whacked by U.S. government officials, I mean, that it's a very real possibility. There is no evidence to support the claims, though. As for the QAnon post, it's not clear who has access to his account. This isn't the first time Mcafee was in prison. In 2019, he was in a Spanish prison, and also he was in a prison in Belize. And in 2019, he was actually smiling in the jailhouse, and he was posting with other friends. And, so rest in peace, John. He has lived quite a crazy life. The charges against him: he's facing 10 counts of tax evasion in Tennessee, 7 counts of fraud and money laundering conspiracy in New York, and 5 counts of, Tennessee prosecutors charged him with 5 counts of tax evasion and 5 counts of willful failure to file a tax return in a June 2020 indictment unsealed in October. Prosecutors alleged that he had earned more than $12 million between 2014 and 2018, but failed to file any tax returns during this time. And what was kind of silly was that he was abroad and he was basically bragging online that he's not paying taxes, that the IRS is corrupt. And even in the jail, hours before his death, he was saying that he believed that the IRS and Internal Revenue Services were corrupt officials. Whether that's true or not, I mean, that depends on the perspective. He didn't pay his taxes, and that's one of those things that's going to follow you even after death. If convicted, he would face 30 years in prison. In March, Mcafee and his bodyguard, Jimmy Jail Watson Jr., were both charged with 7 counts of securities fraud by Manhattan federal prosecutors. These are conspiracy to commit commodities and securities fraud, conspiracy to commit securities and touting fraud, wire fraud conspiracy, and substantive wire fraud and money laundering conspiracy offenses. The 2 men allegedly promoted cryptocurrencies to Mcafee's more than 1 million Twitter followers in order to inflate prices and then sell the cryptocurrencies where prices rose, and supposedly he earned more than $11 million in payments through that. And both Mcafee and Watson faced up to 100 years in prison on these charges if convicted, as well as financial penalties. The Spanish prosecutors said Wednesday Mcafee could be extradited, but only to face charges related to his tax returns of 2016, 17, and 18. In the tax evasion case, these charges, 6 would have carried a maximum of 18 years in prison. But again, he's 75 years old. Even with good behavior, he's going to be 80 in his late 80s. It's not, even with early release, so there's a lot that we could discuss. Let's just spend a minute and take a look at his life to remember him. What's really sad is that his father actually died in a fashion, and that left John in a traumatic state where his father killed himself. He spent millions of dollars on a rock star lifestyle. He overcame addictions. As a child, he was beaten by his military veteran father, and then his dad ended up, shooting himself. After selling Mcafee and divorcing his second wife, Mcafee settled in Belize. He had a harem. Among them was I can't talk about that. There's just too many things that are not appropriate. His legal woes began in 2012 when he fled Belize to evade arrest on suspicion of, what happened with his neighbor. In 2019, he fled America, which he'd fled to from Belize to avoid tax evasion charges. He and his third wife lived on his boat in exile. He was caught and arrested in Spain. He started Mcafee Associates in 1989, and he sold it to Intel in 2010 for $7.7 billion. Of course, he didn't receive the full amount, but he was at his peak worth hundreds of billions of dollars, or at least $200 billion, but we don't really know what happened with his money, because he was alleging for many years that he was bankrupt, that he spent all of his money, he lost a lot of his money. I'm sure he had some financial issues, but I'm also sure that he's smart enough to know that, he was smart enough to hide a lot of his money, and that's what a lot of people suspected. And what he did in Belize was absolutely crazy, where he tried setting up his own little government, and he had his own police force, and he was terrorizing it. just crypto enthusiast. It was absolutely crazy, but I can't explain his entire life, because even if I made a 60-minute long uncensored video, there's just too much that he did. And I actually did make videos about him before on Avi and on Kubera, so that's why I'm not going into too many details. But there's plenty of documentaries out there, so I would recommend you to check them out. It's pretty surreal. Pretty surreal. You know, he's no longer with us. So that's that. I'm not sure what to think of this. Honestly, not sure. I don't like conspiracies, but it is, you know, it's sketchy. Oh, man, that's difficult. So, thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you guys tomorrow. In tomorrow's video, we post daily. Man, he led a crazy life, though. Exciting one. Maybe the last few years kind of sucked for him, but yeah, he certainly led a pretty crazy life.